I played for almost 6 years in the National Football League. Retired from the National Football League. I started the construction company. Our company ended up getting into site work. And when that happened, we ended up having so much massive success. My whole demeanor shifted from grateful, humble, appreciative to egocentric, egomaniac, and all about me.
Today we have a very special guest coming from the East Coast.
Marques Ogden.
He has an interesting story from the rise of NFL stardom down to the start of a business and the rise of that business, reveal his true self and the authentic path that he's taken from a complete disaster of bankruptcy to enlightening the world with his presence and his raw authenticity in life.
And I didn't just lose money, lost my home, lost my cars, lost friends, lost family. I lost everything you can think of when the bank shut us down.
That guest is Marques Ogden. Welcome to the show, buddy. Welcome back to Never in Reverse podcast, always moving forward. Today we have a very special guest. This gentleman was raised in a single parent home, taught early the values of resilience, accountability, and fairness. He's got a unique story that's basically taken him from the rise of the NFL to the bottom of life and then rebuilding. And welcome to the show, Marques Ogden. What's up, buddy?
Jeremy, thanks for having me on, brother.
Marques, just if you can give the viewers just a quick insight to who you are as a person, man, from the childhood up, just so we can get real with you.
Yeah, so I'm from Washington, D.C., Jeremy. I went to St. John's College High School, then went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. I was able to get a full scholarship to play football for the Bison. We were the Howard University Bison, which was amazing because my father was also a Howard University Bison athlete. He played football as well for the Bison and was also on the track team throwing the shot put. And like you said, though, we were raised in a single parent home. When our parents divorced, our dad stepped up and he became the main guardian of us. He had sole custody of both me and my older brother, Jonathan. My brother, Jonathan, played in the NFL for 12 years with the Baltimore Ravens. I played for almost 6 years in the National Football League. It was amazing. But yeah, man, raised in Washington, D.C., went to elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, all in Northwest D.C., and then from there, when I left D.C., I was drafted into the National Football League by the Jacksonville Jaguars and my rookie head coach, Jack Del Rio.
Well, that's awesome, man. And so there lies some synergy between you and I on like this single family home, right? There's some toughness inside that. And I always feel like there's this layer of grit that carries on. But you know, I think going into the podcast and the episode, the rise of you and then the confidence that turned into an ego, like you've tasted the sign of success a lot in life. And I think it's super interesting that, you know, sometimes we all lean into that success when the backside, there's a lot of struggles. And can you talk about like where your confidence shifted in post NFL career? You know, let's say you dove into the real world, you got early success from what you've shared with me, and give the viewer some insight, like what that success parameter looked like to you in the, I would say the distortion of no struggling, right? It kind of gave you just this, man, I could do, it's kind of a superhero view in my book, right? Like you can do anything I touch is just, I got it, right?
Yeah. So, you know, here's the thing, right, man? It's so amazing because at the end of the day, what I find, Jeremy, is that going through all that I've gone through, from the ups, downs, the hills, swings, the curves, all the different things, the hills, the valleys, the highs, the lows, it makes me who I am today. Without those lessons learned, right, again, they weren't failures because I kept going. Where I saw where David Goggins said, I agree with this, when you fail, as long as you learn and don't quit, you're never a failure. So failing is not really failing, it's lessons learned. It's learning lessons in that regard. And that's huge. And I tell people all the time, it's all about our ability to bounce back and keep ourselves moving in motion. That is a huge, huge thing. And so for me, man, all the things that I went through, the ups, downs, the highs, lows, without those things, right, Jeremy, who I am today as an individual, as a speaker, coach, consultant, podcaster, there's absolutely no way we'd be here without those trials and tribulations that we went through life, or I went through in my life.
You lead the NFL, which in there's a challenge in that, right? As an athlete and a former athlete, I can relate to that, man. That identity shift that's a struggle in itself. There's a lot that comes with that a lot of people don't realize on how much emphasis we as those guys growing up playing since you're 10 years old, and you got all this camaraderie, and then you step into the real world, which is not, it's not like a locker room culture necessarily. It could be, but typically it's not. So you're trying to adapt, but you stepped into starting your own venture, right? Right into a construction company. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And what can you walk us through the rise of that and kind of what happened to you and your mentality, um, the overconfidence or maybe where the ego took over? Because I think there's some gold nuggets in there that you've shared with me. That's like, man, there were some things that steps that you stepped over that should have been part of that process, right?
Yeah, so I started the construction company, Jeremy, in 2008. I had just retired from the National Football League. I was 27 at the time, almost 28. And I got into construction because there was a massive need for minority certified contractors in the Baltimore City and the state of Maryland area. And we got certified, which means that at least 51% majority ownership is owned by a minority, African American, Asian, Hispanic, woman owned. And that is what the city wanted to be able to start having more minority contractors have opportunities for success, right, Jeremy, in the Baltimore City area. Great program. So I started off in concrete, a small concrete demolition contractor. We started small, things kind of continued to like grow over time. And then when my mentor went out of business, a huge gap, a huge hole opened up for site work, right? Which is like earth excavation, sediment and erosion control, hauling, utility work like stormwater sewer pipelines and pipes. And so our company ended up getting into site work. And when that happened, we grew substantially because we ended up really having so much massive success pretty much overnight because we were the only company in that scope that could bond 7-figure plus jobs. We were the only one to get bonding, insurance, and again, even if you're a minority contractor, you still need to have bonding and insurance on large projects. So say something goes wrong, the client can make sure to get their money back as well. As very standard. So we were able to do that, and we just grew massively, substantially. And what happened is we ended up literally just being like, boop, my whole persona overnight changed. Actually winning an award in 2011 for the Minority Contractor of the Year from the MWMCA. It was literally the beginning of the end for me because when I won that award, Jeremy, at the end of 2011, at the beginning of 2012, my whole demeanor shifted from grateful, humble, appreciative to egocentric, egomaniac, and all about me. And as a matter of
Wow.
fact, Jeremy, it's kind of like I believe in God. That's just who I am. It's God's intervention. I feel that award is the only award that I was able to have through all the moves that I made after I lost everything. Even after going through like moving to different houses when I was with my fiance, who became my wife, who's now my ex-wife, left the home, moved into an apartment. I was able to buy my dream home May of 2023, right, Jeremy? But that award, I still have that plaque. And it sits in my office on my wall to remind me never ever let your ego get big again. So that honestly, if I can really say in Caden's time, we really went from humble and grateful and appreciative to egomaniac, all about me and all about the fame, the glory, all the things that didn't matter when I won that award in 2011.
Man, thanks for sharing that. I can tell you that there was a time in college for me when I was, as a safety, played college football, and I was a senior and starter, all this stuff, right? You get the and I there was a freshman that stepped in and he just was outworking me, and he was doing, and I was just kind of lackadaisical, just ego. I got this. I've been doing this for 4 years. Another preseason start off, and I remember him. He started beating me out, and it was my ego was just kind of sitting there, and man, then I just remember this moment. I can sit there today and relate to just that turning point of like, listen, dude, this guy's he's the next in line. You know what I mean? And it was it. I felt like and I'm sure we all go through this as athletes, but you kind of just get in this lackadaisical element. I did anyways, where it's like, you know how it is. You start off and you're doing, 4-hour practices. It gets tiring, man, and you're just like over it. But, thank you for sharing that. And I think that struggle is real. And I think that there's insight for you to bring that to light. Like, hey, listen, guys, success isn't, if you don't manage success correctly, with a bunch of humility and humbleness like you did when you started, it can destroy your entire team. It can destroy your marriage. It can destroy you. If you, especially on that quick rise where you didn't even have a chance to be comfortable with success. It sounds like, right? It was like so fast that you didn't have the autonomy with the success to lean into that and go, man, this has been a struggle. It was like, boom, look at me, top on the hill. I'm the general on the hill looking down at everyone. And that's it. And, I think you can lose during that time. And I'm sure you lost more than just money, right? You lost, I'm sure it was a much bigger.
I lost everything. Yes. So after the business hit rock bottom, after I ended up hitting a snag on a project, and I spent about 2.5 to $3 million of my money, of my resources, of my bank lines of credit, credit cards, you name it. When I was denied my change order by the developer and the contractor, and the bank shut me down December 23rd, 2012. That was the beginning of the end for us. And I didn't just lose money, lost my home, lost my cars, lost my credit cards, lost everything you can think of from a fiscal perspective. And on top of that, lost friends, lost family. It severed and tore relationships I had with people. When I left Baltimore, I felt truly like a failure. I felt truly like a fraud, a phony. I lost my self-respect. I felt like less than a man. Didn't know how I was going to take care of my fiance and her daughter, my stepdaughter. I wanted to have a family of my own, which I didn't know how I was going to take care of my future daughter. Like, it was really, really tough. So again, yeah, man, I didn't just lose money, Journey. I lost everything you can think of, from self-respect to, that felt I lost my manhood. I felt like I lost everything in that job, in that hole, when I ended up leaving Baltimore and coming down to Raleigh after I had to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and shut my company down when the bank shut us down.
Well, first of all, man, I see you, brother. Thanks for being raw. That's awesome. I can't imagine where you're at, and just knowing you as a person, man. The thing I can tell you, and just for viewers, I think that, we get a lot of at bats, and I think that, it's what you do with those at bats. You don't get many in a game, like a baseball game, but, in life, it's like, I think the more important thing that you can share is like, taking these things, you got a bunch of success early on. You're in the NFL. That's got its own twist to, I would say, the masculine ego. For me, it would. I'd be like, man, I'm the top 1% of the 1%, right? And you're in these locker rooms that these guys have been extremely successful in their niche, and then you step out and you get this near instant success that's multi-million-dollar business overnight. It almost feeds the beast. It's done that to me, and you don't know that beast necessarily exists until it comes out, right? And now you hit rock bottom. I think that's almost one of the best things in life, based off of what you decide to do with it. So you move away, you're trying to reestablish your identity. Now what? The rebuild, right? Like you gotta come up and realize all the past is no longer, it's all that matters is the current day, right? Like that's all we have. And I'm doing my best now to live like that. I used to project the future, but today is what you got. And I think every step of that day is important as long as you're moving in the right direction. Can you walk viewers, the rebuild? You moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. You basically step away from every single thing that that's comfortable. And now you're extremely, I would have been really insecure of myself. I would have been vulnerable. I would have felt like I couldn't support my family. All these things that you're saying, that would hit home to me in a part. I'd be almost embarrassed to step into my home. That would have been me. But now the next step for you is where it really starts, right? So can you walk viewers through that step into Raleigh and what you did with your ego, what you did with the next steps of your life to start that slow rebuild?
When I got down to Raleigh after, the bankruptcy and then, just losing everything, got here April 2013. I ended up getting a job at an organization through the NFL, which was amazing. It still is a major financial, planning company. Was there for about 2 months, but unfortunately, because I wasn't doing well on my practice test, I got fired, which was all my fault. I got a job at a construction company, a masonry contractor the next day. I got fired from that job 5 days later. The only job I could get was a custodian working in downtown Raleigh for $8.25 an hour. And I tell people that when I got that job, I still was not accountable for what happened with the business. I blame my partner, I blame my employees, the developer, the contractor. And I tell people now, I have a speaking job coming up in Baltimore in April, and it's construction based. This is the first time I've been back to Baltimore in 13 years to give a speech around my story in the construction space. So it's very special to me. And I will tell people, and I've told people that even hired me, the people that bankrupted me, it wasn't a developer, it wasn't the contractor, it was me. I did all the extra work with no change order. I did things because I felt I was invincible. I couldn't be touched. And I'm like, I got this. I'm good. Well, in reality, I didn't have it. I wasn't good. And you know what? I had to learn. And, sometimes some lessons, hurt more than others. And that lesson of losing everything has probably been my most catastrophic lesson learned in my life. And so when I got fired from those 2 jobs, I still blamed everybody else. And it took me hitting complete rock bottom, having my spoiled milk moment where somebody's trash, rotten meat, nasty, protruding, horrible smelling, stinking garbage got all over me. And that's when I realized at that moment that I was the culprit in everything that went wrong in my life. The business failing, me losing my home, or having it be foreclosed on, or having both cars repossessed in the same day. So, ladies and gentlemen, this comes down to your ability to be accountable and take ownership for what you want in your life. Right? You know what I'm saying? You can't live life in reverse, right? You can't go backwards, right? So if you make a mistake, own it, fix it, move on. And my spoiled milk moment helped me to realize that I was the one that put me there. And so once I accepted that, I can start to fix it. And that's when I said, I want to be a keynote speaker. I started speaking in September of 2013. I didn't get my first paid job until April 2016. And then I got my second job in April 2017. And in 2018, I met Mel Robbins. I was on her
Oh,
audio book,
nice.
Kick Ass with Mel.
Yeah.
And that woman changed my life for the better. She helped me to understand how to move forward in life. You have to be inspirational, not motivational. And once I learned that, our speaking started to take off like a rocket. In the last 8 years, we've worked for over 90 Fortune 500 clients as a speaker. Over 90. I'm a 5-time best-selling author. We have a podcast called Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. We're in
Nice.
the top 0.5% most popular worldwide. I'm also we are also building up our YouTube channel. That's going very well. We started about 3 weeks ago. We've had fast-paced growth and we're consistent. We put out short content on that on our YouTube channel daily, and we do long-form content twice a week. And our audio goes out 4 times a week on Apple and Spotify, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And it's got a great rhythm. And I speak all over the world, coach, consult. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I had to own the mistakes that I made. Like I said, we cannot live our life in reverse. If you try to go backwards and live and dwell on things, it's only going to bring you down because the past is gone. The future is not here yet. Learn to live in the present.
And man, I think I'll tell you what, I think there's probably a lot of background that you and I can relate to just being in a single family home. I can tell you that, it's inspirational to me to see you come from the bottom up. I came from nothing, so there's nowhere else to go but forward, right? But I think the moments of those his I would say they're almost euphoric experiences where you get to the top of you're so successful that nothing can touch you. Um, and then you slowly came down to the bottom, and I'll praise you, man, for not stepping outside of being too real with yourself on going and getting an $8.25 janitorial job. You stepped into something, and probably more importantly, man, just stepping into yourself in that moment, and not because that was a moment to me that, from what I hear, is you stepped into something that was so far above you that to bring a humbleness and awareness to, man, I'm doing something. You go from the NFL to a multi-million-dollar business down to a janitorial job. You could hide behind that all day long, but I think that's what the golden nugget's at, is like, listen, dude, I've been on the top and I've been on the bottom, and the bottom is what made me, because you stepped into a speaking role. You got one in 1 year and you got one the next year. Well, that's two. There's not much momentum in that, but there's building blocks that you might not be seeing. And you met Mel Robbins, and Mel Robbins took you to the promised land, right? And those moments matter. And it might have been a third year, but you didn't stop. And I think that's what's so important for people, is like, they want instant success. They want Instagram reels. We're doing all these things and we want this crazy amount of success so fast. And I think when you have that, it could really hurt you, or it could really help you, depending on who's around you to help guide you. But as we wrap up this show, what ego mistakes do you see leaders repeating often? Is there something that you can relate to that you've seen?
Oh, that's a great question, and it's an easy one to answer. I constantly see leaders that have an ego feeling and believing they have to always have the right answer. They have to always fix it. They have to always solve everything. They have to always have the solution. Being a leader doesn't mean you're going to always have the solution. Being a leader doesn't mean you're going to always have the answers or the right answers. Being a leader is being courageous enough and bold enough and vulnerable enough to tell people you need help, to tell people you need their assistance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting help from people. If you're paying your staff or your consultants or your 1099 team members, and you're not leaning on them for their advice in their area of expertise and wisdom, you are wasting payroll. So I constantly see leaders who struggle really feel that their ego has to make them feel that they always know the answer. And I was the same way with Caden in 2012, which is why at the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013, I'm bankrupt, broke, out of business, and almost homeless.
And guess what? And you still knew everything. You know what I mean? Like, that's the gold nugget, is like, dude, and that was probably the most defining moment, right? But thanks for sharing that. How today do you stay grounded with integrity to make sure that when that little ego guy pops in the door, you know, that happens, right? Like that's the struggle. Like when that happens, how do you stay within integrity and stay grounded?
When you lose everything, you appreciate everything. And I've lost everything, Jeremy. There was a time where I had $400 to my name. Period. To my name. Not like that's it. $400, no savings, no 401k, no credit cards, no nothing. $400. There's been times where both cars were repossessed, not the same month, not the same week, in the same day. Boom, boom. I remember it like it was yesterday when the repo man kept calling and calling because I was ducking them. I was hiding. I was not wanting to take their call. And I remember I just said one day, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I can't keep having these people call me over and over and threaten me and hound me. And I answered the phone and I told them, here's my address. Please come pick up these 2 trucks. They picked them up within the hour and both were gone. And I had no car. I had no money. I had nothing. So when you lose everything, you appreciate everything. So me being at rock bottom, having no money, no car, no friends, no real purpose, direction, no plan, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was only 13 years ago. That's it. That's it. And that seems like a long time, but I tell you what, most people that I know, when you lose $3 million, when you move to a new city with no money, when you come to a new city, $5.5 million in debt, and so broke, you can't even pay the bankruptcy attorney to protect yourself from the $5.5 million you had outstanding from creditors that could come after you at any time. It was a nightmare every day, wondering if that door was going to open, if from a doorbell rang, was going to open with someone, a creditor saying, here's a letter, we'll see you in court. Because I went through that too. I had to go to Baltimore and defend myself against creditors that were trying to come after me when the business failed. And it was a nightmare. So I'll never, ever let ego creep in again because I remember that like it was yesterday. And like I said, Jeremy, that plaque hangs right on my wall in my office. Every time I walk into my office, I see that plaque and it reminds me, never, ever again let your ego get so big that you lose your humility and your gratitude.
Man, thank you for sharing that. When you hear our podcast name, Never in Reverse, what does that mean to you?
What it means to me is never in reverse means to me that you cannot live in the past. You can't go back in time. There is no Doc Emmett Brown. There is no Marty McFly. There is no time machine. You can't go backwards. What you can do is learn from past things and go and do better. But a lot of people live, right, Jeremy, in their past glory. Oh, I was a great NFL football player. I mean, I met a guy at an event, right, at a football event in Miami. And this guy had retired from football in like 1998 or 1999. When I met him, it was like 2016 or 17. And he still was talking about his football glory from 1998, 1999. Yep. He had no career. He hadn't worked a job since 1999. And he did make a whole bunch of money in the NFL. Now, his wife was the one who went to work every day, but all he did was he talked about how great his past glory was from what? 20-some years ago?
Man.
Right? Almost 20-some years ago. That to me is living in your past. Never reverse to me means you should never go backwards. You should learn to go forward. The past should teach you things to help you move forward. The past is not designed for you to go there and relive it. every single day. You know what, Jeremy? That was my problem. When I got here to Raleigh in 2013, I still lived in reverse. I was like, oh, I'm a former NFL player. I'm going to try to do this again. I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to try to go to the CFL. I'm going to go down at the Dodger Town, have a great workout, go to the CFL, get a starting job, go back to NFL and be in my early 30s and be crushing it and go out there and play with my guys again. I was so living in my
Yep.
past. I was destroying my present and my future. And today, the past, I remember it, but I don't live in it. I don't go
100%.
backwards. I'll remember things. I will look, as Tupac says, in the rearview mirror, staring at the world from my rear view. I'll look there,
Yep.
but I won't live from there. So
No.
what I hope people get from this podcast, in light, learn from your past. Don't live in it. Live in your present, and then prepare for your future. The future, Marcus is excited about what he's doing with his podcast, his brand, all that. I know who I was. This is who I was. That's part of my past. But that, Marcus, is never coming back. And you know what? That's okay, because I'm done with the past in that regard. And I move forward in my present and in my future.
Well, Marques, thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast. It's awesome to see just basically, I see a man in you of like, it's never too late to start stepping forward. It's never too late to make a decision that might not be the best. And thank you for being raw, authentic, honest, carrying that weight with grace, and it looks lighter on you, right? So thank you for giving the viewers some insight to high level success in the bottom without hiding behind the past. I think that's what's important for you is like, man, you're wearing that with authenticity. And that's where your service comes in, right? Like that's where people are going to engage and connect with you. So thank you for being honest, man. Until next time, find Marques and his business. Where are you guys located? Are you on all Instagram, YouTube, obviously?
All the socials at Marques Ogden, MarquesOgden, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and follow and engage and check out our podcast and connect with us. You can also shoot me an email, Marques@MarquesOgden.com.
Awesome, man. Thanks for your time, brother. Appreciate you. Later. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
brother.
Take care. See
You
you.
too.